We need to get better as law enforcement in responding to it. We can't quit training. Every department needs a protocol.
Take it from him. He's helped write the guide for responding to active shooters.
Columbine, I was the lead shield going in, so first guy in Columbine.
With details emerging of a failed response by police in Texas, this former SWAT team leader fears more lives could have been saved.
Once a shooting starts, on an average of every 15 seconds, a person is shot and killed.
Denver teachers say the school district talks a big talk.
DPS is trying to promote that they are equitable, that they are anti-racism.
But isn't following it up with action.
Yet they're not walking the walk.
Now they're taking it upon themselves to support their peers. Well, thanks for joining us tonight for Denver 7 News at 6. I'm Shannon Ogden.
And I'm Jacqueline Allen. Admission of failures by Texas police officers responding to the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas on Tuesday.
And today, the director of the Texas Safety Department says wrong decisions were made, leading to children being killed. The director says the chief of Uvalde ISD police wrongly believed that the incident had moved from an active shooter situation to a barricade situation. Now, a barricade would suggest the suspect stopped firing and locked himself in the classroom by himself. The director says several 911 calls were made by children still inside the school asking for police help while the shots still were being fired in the background. And investigations now being conducted into that police response. When situations like this occur, departments have protocols on how officers should respond. Those protocols are built off lessons learned from, for example, the Columbine shooting in 1999. Today, Megan Lopez talked to a now retired SWAT officer who responded to Columbine and who now trains law enforcement agencies nationwide. And he says officers in Texas made the same mistakes that he has been pushing others to avoid for decades.
There's a cycle after tragedies like the school shooting in Uvalde. First shock, disbelief, then grief, anger, then questions. So many questions. Questions about how this happened and why. Some questions will be answered in the days and weeks ahead. Some we'll never know. After the questions, lessons. The type.
I'll never forget the feeling about going through that window.
Grant Whitus has dedicated his life to teaching others.
Columbine, I was the lead shield going in, so first guy in Columbine.
Protocols were different in 1999. Officers waited 47 minutes before entering that school.
Columbine obviously set the precedent. The lessons learned there is why we've taught for 23 years. Don't make the same mistake we made.
The most important lesson from that day: every second matters.
A shooting starts on an average of every 15 seconds. Person is shot and killed.
For 23 years, Whitus has been training others not to wait.
In that first minute, the expectation was that officers in that door trying to stop that shooter. No more waiting, no more setting up for perimeter waiting on SWAT.
It's a strategy that's been successful in shootings like the STEM school to save lives. But that's not what happened in Uvalde. A timeline released by Texas officials showed the shooter had nearly 90 minutes before officers confronted him. He entered a classroom at 11:33 a.m. while police stayed in the hallway.
For the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, of course it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that.
It sounds like there was a definite problem with the response here.
But there were. Children in the two classrooms with the shooter made phone call after phone call begging for help. Whitus is waiting for that investigation to wrap up, but even he has questions.
The more I watch this, the harder it gets. And I feel so much for and so bad for those parents that are pleading with these law enforcement officers to get in there and stop it.
There are so many questions after a tragedy like Uvalde, so many lessons.
We need to get better as law enforcement in responding to it.
For Whitus, the lesson is that the training never stops. Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
The shooter fired a total of 142 bullets inside the school. Officials say he had 60 magazines and more than 1,600 rounds of ammunition, but left most of that outside the school. Texas Governor Greg Abbott told reporters in a press conference today that he was misled about the initial police response and that he's livid.
And students across Denver protested today, calling for tougher gun laws to keep them safe. Today we saw students from Strive Prep protest along Pena Boulevard in Green Valley Ranch. We saw Northfield High students protesting at the state capitol. And yesterday, 2 people were taken into custody, causing a lockdown at Northfield High. Now, they brought paintball guns into the school. Well, today at the protest of the Capitol, students we talked to said they don't want to carry this burden of protecting themselves anymore.
Every time I walk into a classroom, I automatically think, where's the best place to hide? Where am I going to be the safest? Any classroom that has more than a few windows, I'm terrified of because there aren't any places to hide.
I'm 16, I can't vote. I can't really make that big of a difference, but interviewing with you and standing on those steps holding a poster and talking to people about my experience is making a little bit of a difference.
The Denver School District sent a statement today saying educators were on scene to ensure the students' safety. There is increased police patrols at Denver schools for the rest of the year as well. And students in Hamilton Middle School in Denver also took part in the protest today, calling for tougher gun laws. And today, their school leadership banned backpacks and bags for the rest of the school year at the request of students.
Some Denver teachers say the school district's talk about equity is not enough. Teachers of color have low retention rates in DPS, and Denver 7's Micah Smith takes us to a walk-in drawing attention to that issue.
On May 13th, Denver North High School students walked out of class to protest the firing of teacher Tim Hernandez.
I'm not the first, nor will I be the last brown and black teacher to be let go by this district.
2 weeks later,
It is not an isolated case.
Recruit, retain, respect.
the Denver Classroom Teachers Association held a walk-in at several schools to show support for all teachers of color.
You can feel isolated on your own. You can feel that your perspective is not always valued.
DCTA member and teacher Kevin Adams says he's one of many DPS teachers of color who experience daily microaggressions.
But also, I think being an experienced teacher, a non-probationary teacher, I've been able to use my voice a lot more.
West High teacher and DCTA representative Des Baldonado says teachers of color can't be the only ones speaking up.
I am a middle-aged white woman, but I also know that it is not just people of color's responsibility to do this. I have a responsibility to stand up for everyone else.
Baldonado says DPS claims to support diversity, but low retention rates prove otherwise.
They've made our educators of color so uncomfortable that despite everything that the union is doing to try and help them, they're leaving.
State and local data shows about 70% of DPS students are students of color, while 30% of teachers are teachers of color. In response to the walk-in, DPS sent us this statement, which reads in part, "Our school district serves a diverse community, and we take pride in our commitment to recruit and retain educators who reflect that. We also routinely survey BIPOC educators. From the results, we work to create meaningful and lasting changes that serve them."
You have to allow us to be our authentic self.
Adams and Baldonado say talking about diversity is great, but it's time to start truly practicing inclusion. Reporting in Denver, Micah Smith, Denver 7.
And teachers held a walk-in instead of a walk-out today to show solidarity and to set an example for students across the district.
This isn't just a local school level issue. Higher education is seeing it too. Earlier this month, students in DU's Graduate School of Professional Psychology held a protest over the same thing. They say several professors of color have recently left the school, and now that is impacting their decision of whether they're going to stay.
When I see that people who look like me, who have the same identities as me, and who espouse the same ideals as me are no longer a part of it, it makes me wonder, can I get the quality of education that I'm looking for?
It's a workload equity task force to examine the issue expressed by the faculty.
Some advocates say more needs to be done to make school curriculum more inclusive as well. Currently, a committee is tasked with reviewing standards for social studies curriculum in Colorado schools. Now, the latest draft, released just yesterday, includes fewer mentions of people of color and those in the LGBTQ community. The committee has been reviewing social studies standards since last year, and one state school board member says inclusion of LGBTQ and migration for second graders could be seen as indoctrination.
A new report details problems at the BLM facility in Canyon City, where those 145 wild horses died from equine flu. The report found the BLM failed to vaccinate the horses despite being in their care for more than 7 months. The report blames a shortage of workers at the facility, and it says the horses were, this is a quote, unusually high-strung. The report was released by 3 BLM officials and a veterinarian from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We also heard from advocates who say they can prove with email documentation that this was nothing more than negligence on behalf of the BLM. You can hear their side of the story tonight on Denver 7 News at 10.
Memorial Day weekend is ringing in the return of rafting season in Colorado. So today we stopped by Liquid Descent Rafting in Idaho Springs to see what their outlook is for the season. The team there says our late spring snow actually helped turn things around for them. They expect rafting on Clear Creek to happen all the way through August. Last year was actually record-breaking for the industry. The owner of Liquid Descent tells us it was the best year in their history because they had such a slow 2020.
High fire danger will be sticking with us as we head into our holiday weekend, but I'll have the complete forecast coming up.
A life dedicated to serving his country.
I always liked the military very much.
How this veteran has impacted generations of service members.
It just did a lot for me, and I hope I did a lot for it.
Plus, a second chance to put the Blues away. The Avs are on the ice looking to continue their quest for the Stanley Cup.